Hi, my name is Mary Wong, and I'm a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and acupuncturist. Welcome to my Fertility Live post number 13, where I am going to be talking to you about basal body temperature charting from a personal perspective, a practical perspective, and with the eyes through TCM and Western medicine simultaneously. So the very first bit that I am going to look at is about choosing your temperature thermometer rather. So here I have two. This is the good old-fashioned one, although it's no longer mercury because that would be dangerous, but it is a glass thermometer. And then this one is a digital one that I just picked up, both of which I just picked up today at the nearest pharmacy. There are different ones out there, and I'm going to start telling you between digital and the good old-fashioned one, I would say ditch this, because when you're using a good old-fashioned one, it's actually really impractical because you have to wait like 4 minutes and you have to stick it in your mouth like this, and it has to be kept closed, and you can't, even if you get over air like that, you have to redo it. So you have to keep it in your mouth for a good 4 minutes. And if you do it through the axillary, which is like through your armpit, that takes a good actually 5 minutes before you get a reading. And if you look at this, it's actually very difficult to get a really good exact reading. And nowadays I find the digital ones, let me see here, you just turn it on and the digital bit comes on, and I just stick it in. I'll demonstrate. I'll stick it in for like a couple of seconds and it'll beep 3 times. Okay, I was too slow. I was too fast. Anyway, it did beep 3 times after I took it out, so it's probably slightly inaccurate. But technically, the digital ones are easier. Now, I did a little research, and the top 3 basal body thermometers on Amazon was, they're all digital, okay? So one is the Terumo Electronics thermometer, woman in degrees Celsius, so that's very Canadian. And then there is a Eudeman digital basal thermometer, and then the basal digital thermometer. And with the 3 that we just mentioned on Amazon, one is on Amazon Canadian, one is on an American Amazon, and they're around, the Canadian one was $59, whereas this one in my local pharmacy is $24. So I'm not really sure if it's going to be a huge amount better, but I imagine so. And the other one that I found was $57 US, which basically puts it to, for us now with our bad exchange rate, like $75, $80. So it's quite a bit. It's not cheap. Now, with that, all about tracking your basal body temperature. In the old days, you just literally mark it down on a chart. That's how I had been doing it old school, right? Where you can actually see the graph. And I'm going to just show you an example of this. So this is straight out of one of my colleague mentors' book. It's called The Infertility Cure. And here you see the basal body temperature chart. So in the follicular phase, which means it's, right from when you menstruate to ovulation, you're going to have a lower temperature, and then when you ovulate, like right before ovulation, there should be a little dip, and then it increases, and then in the follicular phase, after ovulation, it should have a higher rise in temperature. If you get pregnant, then actually it stays up. If you don't get pregnant, you'll get your period and it'll go down. And in Chinese medicine, there's huge significance in that. Meaning, if the temperatures are like zigzaggedy, that means certain things, and we can work on it through diet, through exercise, through Chinese medicine, herbs, supplements, and even, with lifestyle changes, which includes, decreasing your stress levels. All those kinds of things can impact your basal body temperature. So back to the basics, okay? After you've chosen your thermometer, when do you take it? Well, the very first time you take it is right after you get up from bed, but you don't actually get out of bed. So you want to just kind of reach over, because it should be by your nightstand. You reach over, grab it, and place it under your tongue. Now, there is the ability to do it under your armpit. It's supposed to be more stable. But then the other option is through the vagina. And personally, I think that's like totally impractical. I've never done it, and I've seen the very seldom few that have done it that way. But to me, it's kind of like, gross. Anyway, but it's up to you. The most easy is sublingual, which is literally just under the tongue, and you hold it until it beeps. And so you do it before you pee, before you get up out of bed, before you sit up. And so really no movement, because anything can kind of disrupt it. And so speaking of disruption to your basal body temperature, it may be inaccurate if you're a person that just actually is a poor sleeper, because typically you want to have at least a good solid 4 hours before you take your temperature, because otherwise it can impact the reading. And other things that can impact your reading is if you're sick. So again, lack of sleep. Also, it won't work as well if you've had alcohol in your system. It may change your temperature, but hopefully, because when you're trying to conceive, you won't even be having alcohol anyway. And then the other thing is traveling and time change. I find that impacts the temperature reading, which will skew your graph. So you don't have to totally look at it as it's set in stone. And so, on that note, we're looking at charting it. So when you're charting, there's different apps now that are available, rather than you doing the old school method of charting, which is what I used to do. But now, with our glorious iPhones and Android phones, there's lots of apps available, some of which is free. So I'm going to name 3 that is good for your iPhone. So there's Selene Fertility Aware, Ovia Fertility, Sprout Fertility, and Period Tracker. And then for the Android, there is the Fertility Friend Tracker, the Period and Ovulation, and the View Ovulation and Fertility. And Kindara is one that I used to tell people to take through as well, and I think that's a good one. And now, apparently, as my colleague Tanya Smith, who told me about today, thank you for joining, Tanya, she says that there's a new one called Wink through Kindara, and that includes the thermometer. And when I checked online through the US, the Kindara.com website, it's basically being sold for $129 US, so not cheap. And however, until the 31st, because it's new, it's like $99 on sale. But the cool thing about this thermometer is that instead of you doing any kind of charting, because even when you get it on app, you still have to put it in. But this one, like literally, it's like a no-brainer. You, through Bluetooth, with a thermometer that you would get through this Kindara, you will insert it again under the tongue, but then automatically it'll transfer the number to the app directly, so you don't have to punch in anything. And then that's it for that. So if you want to pay the money and if you like gadgets, then that would be the one for you. And then lastly, there's another one. It's called conceivable.com. It's won awards, but this one is definitely like a program. It's not only telling you about the graph, but it actually goes more into doing a program for you, so you can have an actual phone consult with the founder, Kirsten Karchmer. And then there's an analysis to the fertility problem, customized recipe, shopping list, meal plans, like the whole yards through the app and the program. And it's again not cheap. It's for 1 month it's 119 US dollars, and then for 3 months it's 299, and then with an auto renewal. Now for us, of course, as TCM practitioners, and if you want to go that route, basically you would chart it all and then you see your TCM practitioner. TCM stands for Chinese medicine practitioner, right? And through that, then of course you get a very direct input one-on-one with your practitioner about how to deal with your basal body temperature chart. Now, what I would think is even more important to check in as you do this is, oh wait, sorry, I'm gonna backtrack again. So some people I have witnessed using the basal body temperature simultaneously with going to cycle monitoring at the fertility clinic. So I say it's stressful enough to go to a fertility clinic, and then you're adding perhaps even more stress when you're doing basal body temperature charting. And some people track their cervical mucus and their cervix and softness of their cervix all at the same time going to a fertility clinic. So if you're trying to like relax about fertility, you're totally not able to, because all you do is increase that hyper obsession and that finite focus on, gee, what is perhaps or potentially wrong with me. So it's kind of like you're using all these methodologies to gain information, and in one way you think perhaps you're in control, but really in another viewpoint it's like you're actually inducing more stress. And again, like that micro focusing, and which has you, as Tanya puts it, judging yourself, meaning judging yourself to see if there's something wrong with you. It's like, oh my gosh, my temperature's too high or too low, or it's all over the place. And I think that can cause more grief. And when you have that kind of grief and that stress, trying to monitor your cycle, I just am weary about in the end how much value it has for you. So there's no right or wrong here. As a practitioner, it's an awesome way for us to know how to treat you, because it gives us a lot of information. But as a person, the person actually doing this, so when I personally was going through my fertility journey, and certainly I did the whole tracking, over time, it actually gave me stress. And it wasn't like I was totally hyper-focusing, but just that, again, the non-natural way of being in your life, because it's not normal to wake up and not do anything and go pee, and you stick the thermometer under your tongue, and then you try to check your cervical mucus and feel your cervix and all that stuff. Like, that's not normal way of living. So you got to see how valuable is it for you. And if your Chinese medicine practitioner asks you to do that, assess to see how long you can do it for. So, again, as a practitioner, it's great to have it for like a good 3-month period for sure. And then you can track to see how well you're doing with changes. But kind of beyond that, you have to check in and see if it's causing you more grief and more stress. Because to me, if that's the case, then it might actually be better to abandon ship. And hopefully within that time frame anyway, you will have had some shifts in your cycles, in your temperature, and maybe rely on other ways rather than just that daily in-out tracking, because in how you feel overall, that may have a difference in your overall well-being, which will impact your eggs. So that's my input on that. And if you have anything to say, anyone that is on here, please make a comment, or if you have a question, please ask. I wanted to keep this kind of short just because then people will actually watch it. Oh, right, just to add in, so there are other people that do this basal body temperature tracking, and one is called Napro Technology. So I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's been at least 30 years old, if not older. Actually, it's probably a lot older because the Catholics use it, and it came from a religious background. And of course, it's about natural tracking to either help fertility or, deter it, because of course, as Catholics, people don't abort. So with that technology, I think it's good again, but it really causes hyperfocusing. When I had patients coming from that way of charting, it kind of freaked me out because they had these giant poster size, almost like a poster board that they would carry around with them, folded up. And they would use it's all homemade charting, and then they would put stickers on all the different symptoms that they may have or don't have, or spotting, all the symptoms that you can get, and you're charting it. And again, back to the point of not wanting to hyperfocus, you cannot help but hyperfocus when you're given this task or this ordeal every single day. So again, for those of you who are pursuing it, just check in. Is it causing you more stress? If it does over time, then I say abandon ship and go back to to other ways, more naturally. And hopefully you've learned that you can help your cycle working with a practitioner, and then just trying to actually think about it a little less. Or of course there is the OPK, and that sometimes can cause stress too, and sometimes that's not accurate either. So it's I've actually seen people that do both basal body temperature, ovulation predictor kit, which is like a pee stick where you check your LH surge. This surge meaning that this hormone will give a signal to the body to ovulate your little egg. And what happens is sometimes I've seen where patients have found that it doesn't actually track with the real cycle monitoring, where you go to a fertility clinic and it's not even 100% on track. Sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. So none of it is foolproof. The foolproof way is cycle monitoring at a fertility clinic. However, of course, that comes with a huge amount of stress when you have to go to a fertility clinic every single day. Not so much fun. So, at the end of the day, what are we saying? Basal body temperature, get the right thermometer that is of ease. Digital, way better than the old school glass thermometer, which can also break, by the way, and it's hard to read. Number 2 is finding an app on your iPhone. That would be the easiest. And then also working with someone rather than completely doing it all by yourself. I just don't think that that's as good of a solution, but you get to choose. So that's it. So thank you for tuning in, and next week we're going to do something really cool, and we're going to make something that's very necessary, because it's fall going to winter and lots of people are getting sick. And I actually forget the name. Tanya, if you can give me the name, that would be awesome. The recipe that Tina made, and we just had some at our meeting on Monday to try to, it's like something that you make and you preserve it for a month, and it's really cool for immune busting and boosting. So join me next week, same that channel, which is Facebook Live on my Facebook page, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And check out my book, Pathways to Pregnancy, which I don't have here, but I'll pretend I do. Check out my website, marywong.life, and scroll down my page for my Facebook and like it too, and share the page. And I have lots more posts coming up, and we'll see you next week. Take care. Bye.